Thank you, Pablo. Thank you also to CVM and Vasco in particular for having invited me. It's a pleasure to be here. Such a beautiful place. I hope that most of you know where Italy is, so it's not like Quebec. I think that Italians and Brazilians have many similarities. So we both love football, we both love carnival, we both love soap operas. And I'm asking to myself, what about financial education? Because the situation in Italy is all but positive in this field. So let me just give you a bit of background about CONSOB very quickly. CONSOB was established in 1974, so it's more or less, CONSOB has the same age of CVM. And after 11 years from his birth, became an independent authority with its own rules, and I mean, at least from a theoretical point of view, with no interference from the government. With regard to our network, we are a member of the European Securities and Markets Authorities, of the IOSCO, so of the International Organization of Security Commission. Also, we are ambassador member of the International Federation of Finance Museums. Our objectives are the same of the other regulators, so they safeguard the confidence in the financial system, investor protection, stability and integrity of the markets, the competitiveness of the financial system, as well as the compliance with the rules governing the security sector. And with regard to the powers, we are the usual powers of the regulators, so regulatory powers, supervisory powers, sanctioning powers. So what about financial education? For us, for CONSOB, is not a statutory objective, so we don't have any assigned responsibility on this field. But for us, the financial education is a sort of complementary tools to our general powers, in the sense that we think that financial education is very much related to investor protection, and in general, the more financially educated people are, probably the less we are going to use our powers. So this is a very direct relationship. When we speak about financial education, we not only speak about financial literacy, not only about awareness, that is the consciousness about rights and obligation. Whenever I have a sort of financial transaction, not only about attitude, in the sense that we have to find the right approach to interact with the professionals. Obviously, when we speak about investor education, we also have to take into account the fact that there is an economic relationship between investment, savings, and consumption. So it's very difficult to find someone that is financially educated, is not educated with regard to savings and consumption. So this concept had to be are very tied. Let's have a look to the Italian context. So I told you this is not so positive, because with regard to the policy background, there's not a sort of clear identification of the responsibilities. There are many uncoordinated initiatives, so with regard to the content, to the target, to the legislative proposal. So there are many initiatives that are overlapping one with the others, and so there's a consequent waste of resources. There's a sort of preference to organize conferences, to organize seminars, very one-shot events on this field, but there's no sort of structure initiatives on this. There's no concept of infrastructure to a sort of regular initiative on this field. We tried so many times to define a national strategy in the past, many times, but so far nothing happened. This with regard to the policy background. Let's have a look to what the researches and the studies tell us. The fact that in Italy, the situation is not positive because we are below the average of other G20 countries. So we have many evidences on this. So is the OECD PISA study on 2012 about students, the Global Financial Literacy Survey in 2015, and a couple of studies of CONSOB in 2015 and 2016. The last one is the report on financial investments of Italian households that has been recently published. The main evidence that we gather, the lack of financial knowledge, the use of non-professional information providers, this kind of overconfidence of people. They believe to have the abilities to manage money in a correct way, but the evidence are saying us that not true. A scarce ability to manage budget planning, and in general, this very high risk of financial vulnerability due to economic decisions which are inconsistent, incorrect, and unconnected. Just have a very quick look to the main findings of this last report by CONSOB. There's a confirmation of low levels of financial knowledge. Just 44% of respondents know the risk-return relationships. Only 27% know about the characteristics of mutual funds. Only 11% know about the interest rate and bond price relationship, and just 23% have a correct understanding of the question, would you invest in negative yield bonds, which is a scenario that is now applying in Europe. What about the individual's attitude towards under-diversification? The fact that only 6% of respondents have a correct perception of the meaning of portfolio diversification. This is a very, strong result. In Italy, there's a preference for liquid products away from the market, so more than 50% of the household wealth is invested in bank accounts and postal saving accounts, so they are away from the financial markets. The use of financial wise is not widespread yet, so just 24% do on their own. The 38% have the access to parents, relatives, friends, and colleagues, so they are not real experts. Investment services are terms of a stranger language, so more than 70% do not know about MiFID, that is the Market and Financial Investment Directive in Europe, MiFID investment services, and more than 80% are not able to perceive the differences of investor protection level. More digitalization among financial service sector could become a challenge for some investors, especially for senior people that have less digital skills than other users. And there were a couple of questions on fintech. So with regard to robo-advice, robo-advice is something unknown and scaring. Just about 87% have never heard about robo-advice. And after having explained the meaning, about 66% answered to be afraid of online frauds and therefore not really interested in. And also the popular crowdfunding, because Italy was one of the first to introduce a regulation on crowdfunding. Also for crowdfunding, about 74% have never heard about crowdfunding, notwithstanding this fact. And just 58% answer to be afraid of online frauds. So this is a sort of, a picture of the situation in Italy. Just have a quick look to the initiative that we are trying to undertake on investor education. One is the so-called Charter of Investor that we undertaken with the main Italian Consumers Association. It started in January 2014. It's a sort of three-leg project. So it's first is just to promote the participation by investor through financial education. The second leg is a better supervision, so the better quality of compliance. And the third one is the introduction of a new alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So just to make available practical tools to retail investors. So with regard to the first leg, we created this web portal, Investor Education. It was released in May 2015. With regard to the supervision, we have made available an online platform for submitting compliance. It's a guided procedure, so they have the possibility to be guided when sending compliance. And the last one will be live on January 2017, is the possibility to have access to new alternative dispute resolution system, which is with the compulsory participation by intermediaries as a decisory completely online procedure. Just have a quick look to the CONSOB web portal. Is divided in three conceptual areas: learning, exercise, and deepening. The first one, we are focusing on, especially on financial planning. With regard to the exercise, we are giving emphasis to the tools, text, and games. So everything which is related, for example, to behavioral. And deepening is about if you want to learn more about the financial crisis, for example. Just a focus on the tools, text, and games. We recently introduced the budget planner. This is a useful tool for taking notes and checking actual expenses to make differences with the expected expenses as to see whether we were able to achieve our savings goal. And also, we made available a number of tests that have been developed internally in order to check the levels of risk tolerance, the impulsivity, and to better know about psychological traits and mental mechanisms. So there are three levels of tests, so basic, intermediate, and advanced. So to give the people the possibility to make this kind of tests to better understand their characteristics, their futures. For the future, we are working on a sort of simulation game, which is something that can allow players to set their investment targets, to have the opportunity to choose the securities and to create and manage a portfolio. And while playing, there's the possibility to receive messages when they run into behavioral traps. So they have the possibility, just playing, to have this kind of messages, is to know when they are making mistakes. Another one is the investment planner, which is a specific tool for financial investment planning to help people on how to approach the investing process, which is, so we have already the budget planner. The next step will be the introduction of this investment planner. So these two projects and the others are made in cooperation with the main Italian university. Just a couple of words on the National Strategy on Financial Education. We tried so many times. The problem is that now, maybe you heard about the fact that in Italy we have government crisis. So once again, we are going to, I suppose, to postpone also this project, because I think they are going to have other priorities. So yes, inside this national strategy, we thought about the national web portal Investor Education, and to target adults and schools with some specific project. And for example, we are just having a collaboration with the national broadcaster. So we were thinking about the possibility to make TV programs on some specific topics. So main takeaways from this recent initiative from France, the financial education is long overdue. We cannot afford anymore the economic and social consequences of this lack of especially in our country. And we need for a coordinated approach. So it's not a responsibility of just one entity, but we have to work together because we have different skills and different competencies, so we have to work together. It's very important for us to share these experiences at the international level. We are a member of the IOSCO C8 committee, so on retail investor, where we speak about these topics. And also, we are a member of the International Federation of Financial Museums, where they drew a sort of manifesto for financial literacy, and we are very proud to have the possibility to spread the knowledge of this manifesto. Also, improving financial education is a long-term behavioral change initiative, so it's very difficult to speak with politicians about this because their view usually is a short-term view, but it strongly relies on a day-by-day coordinated action. Just from our perspective, just to say that for us it's very important to look at the actual behaviors of retail investor. So whenever we take regulatory and policy initiatives, we have to look at their behaviors, and so we want to use this kind of evidence-based approach before taking any initiatives. So we consider this is very important, and we would like to have more studies and more analysis of this, just to have a more clear picture about the level of financial literacy and behavioral attitudes of Italian investors. Thank you very much for your attention.